Hello, my dear students. A warm welcome to you all. I'll be taking a chapter called Principles of Inheritance and Variation. This is your chapter 5 under the unit called Genetics and Evolution. Students, this chapter is very important for your board exams, also for your competitive exams like NEET and KCET. This chapter carries 10 marks for your board exams. The questions may be for 5 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark. Also, you can expect for 1 mark also from this chapter. Students, this is my first lecture video on this chapter. And this particular chapter can be also kept under a broad name called genetics. Students will be aware of the term called genetics. Genetics is the branch of biology which deals with the study of heredity and with variation. Genetics is the branch of biology which deals with the study of heredity and variations. These two terms are quite familiar to you all, as I know. And the term heredity means the tendency of an individual to have the parental characters. So I take an example now. If our father if my eye is quite similar, and if my mother's hair pattern and if my hair pattern are quite similar, these becomes the hereditary characters. I'll take an example here. The father and the mother is here, and also the individual. Probably this particular offspring will be resembling his father in the hair pattern, and also maybe the skin tone of his mother maybe. So these characters, if it is resembling the parents, then such character is called as heredity. And the transfer of such hereditary characters to the individuals we call it as inheritance. The transfer of the hereditary or the paternal characters or the maternal characters to the individual is called as inheritance. Also, we have another term here called variations. Variations are nothing but the characters which differ among the siblings who are born to a similar parent. Now there are 4 individuals here. All the 4 are siblings, and one individual is different in the character. Though all the 4 organisms are grown for a similar same parent here, one individual is varying with a little bit of character. So this difference is called as variation. So we have certain differences. Not all our characters are resembling the father, not all our characters are resembling the mother. Few of the characters we acquire, right? So such characters we call them as variation. So here is the field called genetics. Genetics is the branch of biology which deals with both such hereditary characters and also certain variation characters. So this field is called genetics. Students, the field of genetics has been worked by many scientists. Many scientists have given a lot for this field of science. We consider Gregor Johann Mendel as the father of genetics, and also the term genetics was coined by William Bateson. William Bateson has given the term called genetics long before the work was done by Mr. Gregor Johann Mendel, so that's why we call him as father of genetics. Whatever the work Mr. Mendel has done for the field of genetics, we can study under a broad name called Mendelism. We go ahead of that particular Mendelism in this particular slides here, and we have William Bateson who has coined the term genetics in 1905. There are certain technical terms used in the field of genetics. First, I want you all to understand each and every technical terms properly, and then it's quite easy for us to understand whatever the crosses we get, whatever the problems we get in this chapter will all be easy only once if you understand these technical terms. I'll go with each and every technical term properly, so I want every individual who's listening to this to understand properly. The first term I've taken here is called as hybridization. Hybridization. When I say hybridization, there are 2 individuals here, A and B. Both A and B individuals are of same species. I have taken 2 individuals of same species and crossing them to get another individual of the same species. This technique is called as hybridization. Crossing of 2 similar individuals of the same species and getting another offspring is called as hybridization. So why do this? Consider A is somewhere a particular organism A is having a good characters, around 50% strength is there in this, and also B individual also has a 50% strength in it. Maybe it may be any particular character. When I cross this, not 100% character will be getting. Probably this comes for around 60% or 70% offsprings. So that increase in the potential would have happened for this particular offspring when compared to the parents, isn't it? So this individual, see what I have denoted here, becomes a hybrid, and the whole process of crossing of 2 such individuals is called as hybridization. I repeat, Crossing of two individuals of a similar species is called hybridizations. And once you do the hybridization, you get another offspring which is a little bit more potential compared to the parent. That individual is called as hybrid. I guess you are familiar with both the terms now, hybrid and hybridization. I'll take an example now. I've taken an example of a particular male chicken roaster here, a female chicken hen here. When the hen consider is having a very good potentiality of egg laying capacity, consider a male who is having very good capacity for a meat. When this meat capacity when this roaster who is having meat capacity is crossed with the hen who is having the egg laying capacity, we get another individual of both the characters here. Probably this is an individual here, the C individual, which is very good at egg laying capacity also, and probably the meat is also good. So now this C becomes our hybrid individual obtained from hybridization, right? What is hybridization? Crossing between two individuals. I told you, crossing between two individuals of the same species. Both are chicken, isn't it? So hen and a roaster is taken. Roaster is a male and a hen is a female one. We cross them. Probably this has a very good meat giving capacity and this has a very good egg laying capacity. When two such organisms are crossed, we get another organism of the same species with both the characters in it. We call it as hybrid. I hope both these terms are quite familiar for you all now. I'll go with the third one. The third one is called gene. Students, you have to understand properly where exactly the gene is located. We all know there's something called cell, isn't it? We have so many cells in our body. Each and every cell might not have nucleus, but then still the nucleic acids are kept safe in the nucleus in most of the cells. This nucleus consists of chromosomes. You all know the chromosomes, human chromosomes, we have around 46, right? Each and every chromosomes are made up of DNA and certain proteins, and those proteins are histone and non-histone proteins. We call them as, we will understand the particular histone and non-histone proteins in the next coming chapter. But then I'll repeat now. Consider we have a cell here, and each cell has a nucleus. Within the nucleus we have the chromosome, and within the chromosome is made up of DNA and certain proteins. Now, what is the DNA? DNA is nothing but this double helically coiled structure, isn't it? This DNA will be having certain fragments. See now, probably I'll take this example. From here till here is a particular gene, and also from here till here is another gene. I'll give you a proper explanation with the pointer here. Students, just follow this properly. I'm talking about gene here. Gene is nothing but a fragment of DNA. Where is this DNA present now? DNA is present within the chromosomes. Chromosomes are present within the nucleus. Nucleus is present within the cell, isn't it? Now, talking about this DNA, probably this whole length is the DNA, and from here to here is one gene, from here to here is one gene, from here till here is one gene. So this fragment is gene 1, this fragment is gene 2, and probably this fragment is gene 3. So genes are located on the DNA. DNA is located in the chromosome. Chromosomes are embedded within the nucleus. Nucleus is quite safe inside the cell. I hope you understood where exactly the gene is located. Now, each gene is nothing but a fragment or a segment of DNA. Now, genes, what do genes do? We also call genes as units of heredity. I have told you that the hereditary characters are those characters what we get from our parents, isn't it? So, if we have to get the characters from our parents, here the genes carry the characters. So, the gene here, what we have mentioned here, the gene has particular information within itself which will be coding into a protein later on, and the protein will be exhibited as a character. I'll take an example now. Consider your father is having blue eyes and your mother is having brown eyes, and if you are getting a blue eye, that means your father's this particular gene, the B gene, would have got the father's B gene you would have got from the inheritance pattern, and that is why you resemble. But then the gene, once it's coming to your body, the gene has to express and it has to give a protein. This protein will be coding for that blue color. The blue color, the genes will not be blue in color, but the gene will be coming with lots of information within it. The genes will be expressed within your body as a protein. The protein will give you a character of, say, blue eye or whatever the character that corresponds to. I hope you understood. I repeat, genes are present on the DNA. DNAs have certain genes are present on the DNA, and each gene corresponds to one particular character when they express. Okay. Next, we have a term called allele or allelomorph. Allele and allelomorph are quite same. Alleles is a plural form. Allele and allelomorph is singular itself. Now, what are these alleles? Students, remember, we get one chromosome from the father and we get one chromosome from the mother. So this chromosome what I have got from the father, we call it as paternal one, and this chromosome what I have got from the mother, we call it as maternal one. Each and everybody, we have the paternal chromosomes and we have maternal chromosomes. Father's 23 chromosomes comes to us and mother's 23 chromosomes comes to us, and the whole of 46 chromosomes will be formed together in the zygote, isn't it? So these particular chromosomes carry certain genes. Now, I took an example of the eye color, isn't it? The capital B. Consider this is the father's one and the capital B is here. Your father has given you the capital B, but your mother is having another one, probably the small b. But you will be getting this capital B, isn't it? So now this gene where it is located here and this gene is located here. So now we all know this is the DNA and this point what I have denoted is the gene. But then how do we study for our convenience to understand and study properly this small dot of gene what has been mentioned here? For our convenience, I'll take it as an alphabet, capital B, or the mother's one, the small alphabet I have taken, that is a small b. So here this capital B and the small b are nothing but the alleles. Okay, alleles are nothing but the alternative form of genes. Alternating form of genes. So that means we have a gene which is having both father's and mother's alleles within it. That is, maybe we have a capital B here, we have a small b here. Among them, any one will be expressing. Students, remember, it's not like one eye we have is blue and the other one we have is brown, isn't it? So that way, only one has to get expressed. So that particular gene, now this whole gene from here till here, this whole gene corresponds for eye color. But then it has two alleles, the capital B and the small b here. These are nothing but the alternative forms. The alphabets used here are for our convenience. We don't have any such alphabets on the gene. The gene is just a straight line what I have written here. But then we, for our convenience, denote it by such alphabets. I hope you understood. Alleles are nothing but alternative form of gene. Alternative means for our convenience we have given an alphabet. So those are called as alternative forms of gene. Remember, students, we are diploid organisms. Since human beings are diploid organisms, we have two alleles. Okay, 1 and the 2. There are certain triploid organisms who have triploid, that is 3 alleles also. We human beings are diploid organisms, so that's why we denote it by 2 alphabets. Clear? Next one, we will move on to the term called locus. Locus is nothing but position of a chromosome. I'll take an example here. Look at this particular diagram. This one here, the chromosome is being given here and this allele is mentioned here, right? So this is a allele, that is on this chromosome. Here is our allele what I am talking about, and on this next chromosome there is another allele called small a here. These two are alleles. So now I can write it as capital A and small a. Probably the capital A is given by the father, the paternal one, and the small a is given by the mother, the maternal one. So together I have written it as capital A and small a, but both corresponds for one character, that is one gene has two alternative forms called alleles. But then locus is this point where exactly our allele is located. This point, the small a is located. Locus is nothing but the position where exactly the alleles are located on the chromosomes. Locus is a singular one, loci is a plural one. L-O-C-I, loci is a plural one, locus is a singular one. Next we go for another term called homologous chromosome. Students, you will be aware this one of this one, that is the paternal and the maternal chromosomes come to us in the zygote stage. What happens is the father gives one chromosome, the mother gives one corresponding chromosome. Consider the father's first chromosome, the mother's first chromosome are always identical, they come together. So those chromosomes which are identical and which come and bond together are homologous chromosomes. we might have another set of chromosomes, probably the small one here and another small one here. Now this small one, and this bigger one will never bond to each other because they are non-homologous. Only these two will bond to each other, and then these two will bond to each other. So these two are called as homologous chromosomes, and these two are called as homologous chromosomes. When I take this set and I take this set, then we call it as non-homologous chromosomes. I hope students you understood until here. Next one, we have another term called dominant and recessive allele. Students, you would have studied this particular chapter called heredity in your 10th also. You would have studied what Mendel has done with Gardner P. Yeah, you will be aware of this capital T, small t, and this capital T and small t. I'll take an example now. Consider this capital T codes for tallness, height of the plant. This is a tall plant. And also this small t corresponds for dwarf plant. Okay, this is a tall plant. This is a dwarf plant. When I cross this tall and dwarf plant, I get an individual which is having both the alleles capital T and the small t, right? So there is a chance of capital T expressing, and there is a chance of small t also expressing. That is, the tallness has also come and the dwarfness has also come. But in this individual, the particular plant cannot be both. At the same time, we cannot be tall also. At the same time, we cannot be dwarf also, right? So here, any one gene will express, any one allele will express among this gene. This gene corresponds for height of the plant. Among them, you have capital T and small t. Among them, any one will express. So here, in this case, the capital T will express, and the plant is very tall in nature. Since this capital T is expressing, this capital T, we call it as a dominant allele. And since the small t is not expressing, this small t is getting suppressed by this capital T, because this is expressing without allowing this one, right? So this small t is not expressing, so that's why we call it as recessive allele. We have a dominant allele and we have a recessive allele always in the heterozygous or always in the hybrid individual. This is not a hybrid, this is a pure tall one, this is a pure dwarf one. But then if you take this particular individual which is having both the alphabets here, that is the capital T and the small t, among them always the capital T expresses. So the one which is getting expressed, we call it as dominant one. The one which is always getting suppressed without expressing, we call it as a recessive one. Dominant and recessive alleles are being differentiated in the heterozygous condition when one is capital, when the other one is small. Right? I hope you all understood and all these 7 terminologies. I will go for the next one. The 8th one I have taken is homozygous. And the other one is heterozygous. Students, we just came across a particular example now, that is this particular one, that is a height tall plant and a dwarf plant, giving us the heterozygous hybrid here with tall plant. I have taken here the same thing but with another alphabet called A. Consider this individual who has got the capital A from the father, the capital A from the mother. Both are the same. Similar alleles, identical alleles are there. These identical alleles who are similar, we call them as homozygous. Similar way, another allele is given here, that is small a is being given here. The small a and small a. So one is from the father, the other one is from the mother. Since this both are same or identical, we call it as again homozygous. Here it is homozygous small a, and here it is heterozygous capital A. Here it is homozygous A and capital A. Now there are another chance called heterozygous here. In this heterozygous, we have dissimilar alleles. Dissimilar alleles is one is a capital alphabet A, the other one is a small alphabet A, and also here also we have a small alphabet A and the other one capital alphabet A. So both of these are dissimilar alleles. Dissimilar means they are heterozygous. So this and this both are dissimilar, isn't it? Whereas these two are capitals and these two are small letters. Now here we have capital A small a, and then here is small a capital A. Both are quite same, and for our convenience we always write capital A in the front. Any alphabet which is dominant, we write it in the first. So capital A and small a is given here, and this is said to be heterozygous since it is having two different alleles. Right? The dissimilar alleles we call it as heterozygous, and the similar alleles we call it as homozygous. The next terminology we go for is a phenotype. Phenotype, students remember, phenotype is nothing but a physical appearance or a morphological character that you could see. Okay, I'll take an example here. Consider there are 4 siblings in the family. Among the 4 siblings, 3 are tall and 1 is dwarf one. There are 4 siblings in the family. Among them, 3 are tall and 1 is dwarf. Students, you can aramse see that, right? When the 4 kids stand together, the 3 of them look tall and one who is dwarf also can be seen. So here, by the physical appearance, you are able to say how many are tall, how many are dwarf, like that. That is the phenotype. And now, genotype is something that what kind of gene alignment would have happened in the tall individuals, what kind of gene alignment would have happened in the dwarf individuals. That particular thing is called as genotype. So basically, genotype is nothing but the genetic constitution of a particular character in an individual. That is the genotype. Phenotype is the physical appearance of any particular character. I have taken an example of eye color here again. This has been given here. Phenotype is the physical appearance of the organism. Physical appearance. See now, I have taken an example here. Brown eye. Brown eye you could see around say, right? The physical appearance. And the blue eye also can be seen. So both blue eye and the brown eye, when I write, this is a phenotype. Phenotype is nothing but the blue eye and brown eye here in this given example. Now, this is when I see, but when I go deep into it, what kind of genes are aligned, what kind of gene arrangement has happened, that there comes genotype. So here is genotype. Genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism, what kind of genes we have, whether they are dominant, whether they are recessive. So such arrangements is called as genotype. Without talking about any genes, if you are able to differentiate by your physical test, then we call it as phenotype. By the alignment of genes, if you are expressing, then it is genotype. I'll take an example for genotype here. Students, this blue eye is corresponding by small p and small p. That is, blue eye individual will be having small b, small b. But this brown eye individuals will be having capital B, small b, or there are chances for capital B and capital B also. Student, this brown eye is a dominant character, so that's why we have a capital B here. So capital B is the dominant one and small b is the recessive one here. Okay. So genotype. So when I write it as capital B, here it is. When I write it as capital B, or when I write it as small b, or even as when I write it as capital B, small b, I am talking about genotype. When I just simply blindly say that it is brown or it is blue, this becomes its phenotype. Okay, phenotype is by the physical appearance. I can say among the 4 individuals, 3 of them has blue eyes and 1 of them has the brown eye. So that means I am talking about phenotype. When I say the blue eye one is having the small b, when I say the brown eye one is having capital B, and another one is having capital B, small b, then I am talking about genotype, students. Next one, I have another term called phenotypic ratio, the 12th one, phenotypic ratio. The same example I'll take. I told you that among the 4 individuals, 3 are having the brown eye, the one is having the blue eye. So here 3 brown eye, capital B, is to 1 blue eye, that is the small b. So when I just write 3 is to 1, how did I write 3 is to 1? 3 are having the brown eyes, 1 is having the blue eyes. So this is the phenotypic ratio. When I write genotypic ratio, among these 3, one individual has capital B, 2 individuals have capital B and small b, and another one individual has small b. So if I write like this, that is 3 is to 1 was already given, that is a phenotypic ratio. The genotypic ratio here is 1 brown, this is also brown, this is also brown, all 3 are brown. 3 is to 1 is phenotypic ratio. Genotypic ratio is capital B is 1 is to, these 2 are similar, 1 is to 2 is to, this is another one, small 1. So if I write the ratio as 1 is to 2 is to 1, then that becomes genotypic ratio. How did I write this one? Capital B is only 1, capital B, small b are of 2, and small b is of only 1 type. Right? When I write in terms of the genes, then I am explaining something about genotype. So that becomes genotypic ratio. When I write in terms of numbers with respect to the physical appearance, then I am talking about phenotype. So that becomes a phenotypic ratio. I hope you all understood until here. Well, next moving on to the 14th and the 15th term called monohybrid cross and the dihybrid cross. Students, remember here, I have told you what is hybridization. Hybridization is nothing but crossing of two individuals of a same species and getting another offspring with a little bit more of potentiality, right? So this is with normal hybridization. Monohybrid cross means crossing of two individuals with respect to one single character. One single character has two contrasting features in diploid organisms, okay? And dihybrid crosses crossing of individuals with two characters in consideration. When two characters I take, each character will be having two contrasting features again. So since we are diploid, we will be having two contrasting features. There are certain examples of few characters having another more than one or two contrasting characters also. Well, I will repeat, monohybrid crosses crossing of individuals in respect with one particular character. Dihybrid crosses crossing of individuals with two particular characters into consideration. You will understand much more in deeper when I take up the monohybrid and dihybrid cross in detail. So moving on with this, I hope you all have understood these technical terms used in biogenetics. So I'll go with Mendelism properly. I repeat, we are going with Mendelism. Mendelism means whatever the Mendel has worked on, whatever his laws were there, we study that field is known as Mendelism. So here is Gregor John Mendel. Gregor John Mendel was born on 20th July 1822. He was born to Mr. Anton Mendel. His father is Anton Mendel. Gregor Mendel was a monk in a church who was very much interested in natural history, physics and statistics. Since he was a monk in a church, he got a title called Gregor. Mendel is his surname. And this person, Gregor John Mendel, while he was working on the inheritance pattern for around 7 years, in 1856 to 1863, Mendel has worked for around 28,000 of plants. Among this 28,000 plants, what Mendel has worked to study the inheritance pattern, most of them were garden pea plant. We call them as Pisum sativum. The scientific name of this garden pea plant is Pisum sativum. He has worked with this and he has given certain rules, or what we now today call it as Mendel's first law and Mendel's second law and all. So those laws were being reported in experiments on plant hybridization report in 1866. Mendel has given a report in 1866 under the heading called Experiments on Plant Hybridization to the Brunn Society of Natural Science. This paper was basically in Greek language and most of them could not understand, and Mendel's work was not being appreciated in those days, and with that depression Mendel also got expired in 6th January 1884 at the age of 61 and a half around. So when this person Mendel got expired, around after his death around 16 years later, that is in 1900, there were three scientists, Hugo de Veris, Karl Correns and Teschmark. These three scientists, they rediscovered Mendel's work and then they gave a new design for this whole Mendelism, framing it as a law or a principle of inheritance, and that particular laws we study under this chapter. Pisum sativum was selected by Gregor John Mendel because this Pisum sativum has a very good features. That is, it is an annual plant with both male and female characteristics with it. That's a monoecious plant. It is monoecious flower it has. It is an annual plant and the life cycle is quite less and the progenies are quite more here. Because of this, Pisum sativum was selected by Mr. Gregor Mendel and he has worked with that. Students, remember that each and every character will be having contrasting feature. If I take an example of the height of an individual, tallness and dwarfness are the two contrasting features. And also if I take an example of a color of the skin, the fair color and the dark color will be the contrasting feature. If I take an example of the eye color, the brown and the blue may be the example. Same ways, there are so many characters, such contrasting characters in the garden pea. Mendel was able to differentiate these contrasting features for around 30 characters. Among those 30 characters, Mendel has taken 7 characters for his crosses. All 7 characters are been listed out here. That is seed shape, seed color, flower color, pod shape, pod color, flower position and stem height. Among these characters, as I told you, the dominant one is the one which will be expressing in the hybrid and the recessive one is that which will be expressing when it is in homozygous condition. So here the seed shape is either round or wrinkled.
seed color is either yellow or green, and again flower color is violet and white. Pod shape is full and fat here, constricted. Here it is quite constricted, you can see here. And the green color is the dominant one and the yellow is the recessive one. When it comes to flower position, the flower position axial is dominant. Axial is the flowering towards the sides. Here and here you could see the flower, whereas in the terminal position, that is in the tip of the plant here, this is the recessive characteristic. That is a terminal flowering and axial flowering. Among that, axial is dominant. Next one we have is stem height. In the stem height, the tallness is the dominant one, the dwarfness is the recessive one. So all these 7 characters were taken for the Mendel's crosses, and you have it for the syllabus as monohybrid and dihybrid crosses further. Mendel, when he took the 7 crosses, he has his own way of crossing. That particular crossing we call it as emasculation. Emasculation is given in this picture here. Emasculation is nothing but removal of anthers. Remember students, Pisum sativum or garden pea plant's flower is a monoecious one which has both male and female sex organs. That is, it is having that is androecium and gynoecium. This particular flower, which is having both which is having both androecium and gynoecium, among them the anthers are removed. When the anthers are removed, only the female part, that is the stigma, is left out. Since only the stigma is left out, this we consider it as a female flower. And in this, we take only the pollen grain and we dust this pollen grains onto this stigma of the particular emasculated flower. Since we are taking this pollen grains, only the pollen grains here, we consider this as a male parent. So the act of taking the pollen grains and fertilizing out to the stigma is called as pollination. Transfer of pollen grains onto the stigma is called as pollination. So Mendel has taken these 2 steps, that is emasculation and pollination, for his crosses, for the cross fertilization. Next we'll move on to the Mendel's monohybrid and dihybrid crosses. First we have is Mendel's monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross, as I told you, the crossing of a particular individual with respect to one single character is called as monohybrid cross. Here we have it as inheritance of one gene. Students, consider here Mendel has taken one single character, that is height of the plant. Height of the plant is taken, and height of the plant has 2 variants, one being the tall and the other one being the dwarf. There are 2 chances of a plant, either it can be a tall one or it can be a dwarf one. So here is a tall plant and here is a very small dwarf plant here. So the tall, this is the phenotype of the paternal generation, or maybe you can call it as parental generation. So this tall plant, what I have written here, it is tallness. This is the parental generation phenotype. Dwarfness, this is the parental generation phenotype. The genotype of this, that is, this tall plant is having capital T genes. This becomes the genotype of the parent, and the small t becomes the genotype of another parent. When these 2 plants are crossed, the alleles are being separated. See, this capital T is one allele and this capital T is another allele. When the gamete formation happens, this capital T comes for one gamete and this capital T comes for another gamete here. Same way the small t and small t will also move the similar way. Small t, one will move for one gamete, the other small t will move for another gamete. This is how the gametes are formed from the parent. Once the gametes are formed, when they fuse, capital T and small t are being fused and we get the capital T small t here. This capital T and this small t are fused, so we get capital T and small t here. This capital T and this small t are crossed here, we get capital T and small t, and this capital T and this small t are crossed here and we get here capital T and small t. On a nutshell, all the 4 individuals what we have got here is capital T and small t. So here, since we have got capital T and small t in all the individuals, we can call it as heterozygous tall individual. All are heterozygous tall individuals. Why they are heterozygous? Because they have 2 dissimilar alleles. Why they are tall? Because this one allele which is expressing is a tall coding allele. So that's why all the plants what we have got in this generation, when we cross the parental generation, all are heterozygous tall plant, and this new generation of offsprings we call it as F1 generation. F1 generation. F stands for filial generation. F stands for filial generation. So this is the first filial generation we have got from this parental generation. And with respect with this particular monohybrid cross, Mendel was able to give another one law called law of dominance. Law of dominance we consider it as first law or first principle of inheritance. We consider law of dominance as first law or first principle of inheritance. According to this law, in a heterozygous individual, that is here probably there is capital T and small t are taken here. In an heterozygous individual, the allele that expresses itself is a dominant. Look at here, student, this particular allele is expressing, so this is considered to be a dominant allele. And the one which is getting suppressed without expressing is a recessive allele. This allele is not able to express here, only this is getting expressed here. Since this is not expressing, we call this is getting, we say this is getting suppressed. This allele which is getting suppressed without expressing, we call it as recessive allele. So the law of dominance says the one which is expressing as a dominant allele, the one which is not expressing as a recessive allele. This is with the F1 generation what we have done until now. So next what happens, Mendel goes with F2 generations. In F2 generations what Mendel does is, he takes the same similar capital T small t individual and he takes another capital T small t individual and he crosses here. See, capital T small t and capital T small t of the same generations are taken. If you take this as the grandparent and if you take these four as your parents, and these will be the grandchildren, these four will be a grandchildren, like that. So here capital T small t and capital T small t are being taken and they are allowed to self-fertilize. When they are allowed to self-fertilize, the capital T comes as the capital T goes for one allele here and the small t goes for one allele here, one gamete. Here also the capital T goes for one gamete, the small t goes for another gamete. And when they cross, this one, that is the capital T is here, capital T is here, and small t capital T is here, small t and capital T is here. We, for our convenience, we write it as capital T and small t. Another time, small t and small t are here, small t and small t are here. Here again the capital T and the small t are here. Students, in this four plants that we get, among this four, these three individuals are tall. These three individuals are tall. So here is the number 3 are tall and this one individual is dwarf. So basically from the physical appearance we can say that there are 3 tall plant and 1 dwarf plant. So this becomes its phenotypic ratio. Whereas when you see in the terms of genotype, that is the genes, we have one capital T here, that is being given here, one capital T. We have 2 capital T small t's here, capital T and small t here, that is being given here 2, and here one small t is given here, that is also represented here. So when genotypic ratio is asked, the ratio is 1:2:1. 1:2:1 becomes the genotypic ratio for of a monohybrid cross. 3:1 becomes the phenotypic ratio of a monohybrid cross. With this F1 and F2 generation, Mendel was able to give another law called law of segregation. Law of segregation, we call it as second law or second principle of inheritance. It is famously known as first law of Mendel or Mendel's first law. Though remember students, first law or first principle of inheritance is law of dominance. Mendel's first law is law of segregation. So what does this state is, each individual possesses 2 alleles. Each individual possesses 2 alleles for a particular character. For a particular character, we have taken the character as height of the plant here. So the 2 alleles are capital T and another one is the small t. So each one has 2 alleles. One is inherited from the maternal parent and the other one is inherited from the paternal parent. Among them, the 2 alleles will be coming from, one is from paternal, the other one is from maternal side. The one is from father, the other one is from mother. The law actually states here, that is, during the formation of gametes, look at here now. So here is an individual, capital T and small t. The capital T probably think it has got from the father and small t it has come from the mother. This individual, when the gametes are forming for this individual, the capital T gets separated and the small t gets separated here. The capital T has come here, the small t has come here. That is here, during the formation of the gametes, the 2 alleles, during the formation of the gametes, the two alleles segregate or separate from each other, look at here, the yellow color one are the gametes here. In this yellow, only capital T came to this and only the small t came to this. That is, the one which is having capital T small t together, it has given separately the capital T to this one and the small t to this one. So the alleles get segregated or separated from each other. As a result, one allele goes to each gamete, each one allele comes to each gamete. Since this maintains the purity of the gametes, this is also called as law of purity of gametes. After this, Mendel has given the dihybrid cross. Before going to that, the monohybrid cross has been summarized here. What we took is the homozygous tall plant with homozygous dwarf plant. They gave the gamete capital T and small t. When they got fused, we got capital T and small t containing heterozygous plant. When the selfing was done, that is with capital T and small t, when the selfing was done, we have one individual's gamete here, capital T and small t. We have another individual's gamete, capital T and small t here. The capital T gave capital T here. The capital T and small t individual gave here the capital T small t. Here again the capital T and small t are getting fused to get the capital T small t. Here again we have the small t and small t fusing the small t we got here. Now what happened? This is a tall plant, this is a tall plant, this is a tall plant. Why? Because it has capital T in it. The capital T corresponds for dominance, so all three plants are dominant tall here. So 3:1, because only one is the dwarf one. So 3:1 is the phenotypic ratio. 1:2:1 is the genotypic ratio, because one plant is having capital T and capital T. Two plants has capital T and small t. So 1:2:2, another one plant has small t and small t. So this is how the phenotypic and genotypic ratios are given. This is the phenotypic ratio and this will be the genotypic ratio, that is 1:2:1. This has been summarized for the monohybrid cross. Students, this is a very important question for the 5 mark. Next, another important 5 mark question is the dihybrid cross. We shall go for that. Mendel's dihybrid cross is given here. For this dihybrid cross, as I already told you, crossing of individuals with two particular characters. Mendel has taken two characters here. One is the shape of the seed, another one is the color of the seed. Shape, here the shape is of two variants. One is round shape, the other one is wrinkled shape. The round shape is shown here and the wrinkled shape is also shown here. Next character was the color of the seed. In the color, there are again two variants. One is the yellow, the other one is the green. So yellow color is also shown in the same seed here and the green is also shown in the same seed here. So if you are asked what characters are taken for the dihybrid crosses, shape of the seed and color of the seed are the character. Contrasting features are round and wrinkled for the shape, yellow and green for the color. Students, now this round yellow seeded garden pea plant is denoted by capital R and capital Y. Why? Because this round and yellow both are dominant characters, so that's why we denote it by capital R and by capital Y and capital Y. Another plant that we have taken is wrinkled green plant. This wrinkled green plant we denote it by small r and small y, because both these characters are recessive in nature. When we take this round yellow garden pea plant and when we cross with wrinkled green pea plant, we get the gametes here. Students, you have to notice here R and Y is taken, and also here small r and small y is taken. Never you should take the capital R or the capital Y, because you have studied law of segregation. In the law of segregation, each allele corresponds for one gamete. So if this is one character, capital R will go for one gamete, another capital R will go for another gamete. So here capital R is taken from this character and capital Y is taken from this character. So we got capital R and capital Y here and small r and small y here. You also can write another small r and another small y here. You also can write another capital R and another capital Y, because that corresponds here. Capital R is gone here, this capital R has come here, again one capital Y has come here, the other one capital Y has come here. This way we can write this also. But anyways, since both are capital R and capital Y, here also capital R and capital Y are there, we denote it by only one here. Here also we denote it by only one. When these gametes fuse Look at this, capital R is what we have got here and small r we have got here. Same ways capital Y we have got here and the small y we have got here. So this became capital R, small r, capital Y and small y. This individual will be round yellow in nature. Why it is round and yellow? Because the capital R here is dominant, it gives round shape, and capital Y here is again dominant, it gives yellow color. Since this is the thing, we get round and yellow seeded plants in the F1 generation. In the F1 generation, all the individuals will be round and yellow. After the F1, what Mendel has done is he has taken the same RRYY, capital R, small r, capital Y, small y, and he has taken one more capital R, capital Y and small y. He has crossed them. See here, capital R, small r and capital Y, small y are taken here. So he has crossed here, that is the selfing has happened here. Remember students, again we will take the gametes here. R, capital R is taken here. Next one, capital Y is taken here. And the same way, capital R and small r y is taken this side also because of this particular parent. Next we take the small r and small y. The small r and the small y is taken. Next we take the capital R and the small y, and next we take the small r and small y. This way the gametes are taken. While you are taking the gametes, you have to be very much particular. The way you write the left side, the same way you have to write the right side. Because of the convenience we do this one. So these gametes corresponds for one of the parent, this gametes corresponds for another parent. You can take this as a female parent and you can take this as a male parent for your convenience. When you cross, this capital R and capital Y, capital R and capital Y fuses to form capital R, capital R, capital Y, capital Y. Same as when this and this fuses, we get capital R and small r, capital Y and small y here. And the similar way, when we have to take this particular plant, we take here, that is small r we have got it here, and capital Y we got it here, and here also we got capital R, small r, capital Y here. With this way we take this particular Punnett square, we call this whole checkerboard, whatever the board we have drawn here, this one we call it as Punnett checkerboard, and with this square we are able to denote all the individuals of the plant here. Now we have around 16 individuals here. Among the 16 individuals, when you cross, 9 of them will be round and yellow. See here, round and yellow. We have got 16 plants. 16 plants can be divided into 4 categories. That is round yellow, round green, wrinkled yellow and wrinkled green. Now we are going for the phenotypic ratio. So phenotype will see how many are round and how many are with yellow again, round and yellow. So there are around 9 here. See, look at this one. We have a line here going, round and yellow plants, seeded plants are here. So these become round yellow. Next we have is round green. These 3 plants are round green in nature. So these 3 plants are round green. Next we have is wrinkled yellow. Wrinkled yellow is again 3. One is given here, one is here, the other one is here. These 3 plants are wrinkled yellow and the other one is wrinkled green. We have only 1 here. So 9:3:3:1 is the phenotypic ratio, which corresponds for round yellow is to round green is to wrinkled yellow is to wrinkled green. Individual students, you have to understand that when you add all these 3, you have to get the total number 16. This is with the phenotypic ratio. When you go for genotypic ratio has been given here. You have to remember the genotypic ratio for dihybrid cross is 1:2:1:4:2:1:2:1. Students, you should differentiate here. It is a mirror image. 4 stands in the between. 2 and 2 are here. 1 and 1 are here. 2 and 2 are here. Or in 1 and 1 are there. You also can write it as 1:1:1:1:4:2:2:2. Altogether also you can write. But for the convenience, we have written it like this. But then how did we get this particular genotypic ratio is how many progenies among the 16 are having capital R and capital Y. When we see this is only 1. So 1 individual has it. And then when we see capital R, small r, capital Y, there are only 2 individuals who are having it. Right? So 1:2. Next, when we see another one, that is small r and capital Y, there is only 1 species here, And then next one, when we see capital R, capital Y and small y, there are again two individuals who are having this particular genotype. It is here. And then four individuals are having capital R, and capital Y, small y, that is here. And again, when we see how many individuals are having small r and capital Y and small y, these individuals are around 2. So the ratio comes here, it has 2. Next one, how many individuals are having capital R and small y? We have only one individual here. And two individuals have capital R, small y. And only one individual has small r and small y. So when you see this, we get this ratio. I'll repeat, you can see the picture now. 1:2, 2:1:2, 2:4:2, 2:1:1. This is how we got the genotypic ratio, students. You can go through this one, you'll understand properly. Next one, Mendel, when he gave this dihybrid cross, he was able to give one more law. That law is law of independent assortment. The law of independent assortment is another law what we consider it as third law or principle of inheritance, and this is famously known as Mendel's second law. Mendel's first law is law of segregation. Mendel's second law is law of independent assortment. The first law of inheritance is law of dominance. Second law of inheritance is law of segregation. Now the third law of inheritance is law of independent assortment. So what does it state? According to this law, when two pair of alleles for two contrasting characters present in a hybrid individuals, students, you have to see this one now. The capital R, capital Y and small y, that is the two pair of alleles for two contrasting character. Two contrasting character are round and wrinkled is given here, yellow and the green color is given here. So all two characters and four variants are here. So that is when two pairs of alleles for two contrasting characters present in a hybrid, they segregate and assort independently of each other during the formation of gametes. That is, see here, the capital R came on itself, next the capital Y came. Here the small r came and the capital Y came. Never the capital R is restricted only to capital Y. The capital R also goes with small y. Same ways, small r is not always restricted to capital Y. The small r also can go with small y. So here they are independently assorted. Assorted means moving. They are independently moving during the formation of gametes. That is, the alleles in the parental generations move independently without anybody's influence to each other's gamete. This is the law of segregation. This is the law of independent assortment. Next of all this, we have another thing called as back cross. Back cross is nothing but F1 hybrid and any one of its parental type is crossed. That is, students, if you remember, we have taken this particular cross, that is capital T is being crossed with small t, and we got an F1 as capital T and small t, isn't it? So this F1 can be crossed with either this parent or this parent. When we do this one like this, we call it as back cross. So the example is given here, capital T, small t can be crossed with either this or this particular parent. Similar way we can do it for the dihybrid cross also. The hybrid is taken and crossed with the dominant parent also and also with the recessive parent. Now this back cross is of two types again, that is out cross and test cross. In the out cross, what we do, we take this F1 hybrid and we cross with dominant parent. And in the test cross, what we do is we take the F1 and we cross with the recessive parent. I'll take an example here now. If you see here, here is the F1. The F1 is capital T and small t. Here I have taken a dominant parent. When I cross this way, this becomes out cross. And the individuals obtained will be of the ratio again 1:1, because two of the individuals are again the homozygous tall here, and two of the individuals are heterozygous tall here. So 1:1 the ratio will be here. Next, what happens when you take the test cross? Test cross is done with F1 hybrid with recessive parent, as I told. The examples may go with the monohybrid cross also. Also, it can be going with the dihybrid cross also. First, we'll discuss with the monohybrid cross. Here we have taken the F1 hybrid and we have crossed with the recessive parent. Small t is given here. Small t gives only one particular kind of allele, and this capital T and small t are being separated for two different type of alleles. We get the individuals. One will be a tall, the other one will be a dwarf. This is the tall and dwarf, that is 1:1 is the phenotypic ratio. Also we get a heterozygous tall plant and we get a homozygous dwarf plant here. This becomes the genotypic ratio. Both are 1:1. It has been shown here. Now moving on with the second example, that is for the dihybrid cross. In dihybrid cross, we take the round yellow F1 hybrid and we cross with the wrinkled green, that is small r and small y. When we cross here, we get 4 individuals. These 4 individuals, among them, 1/4 of them will be of round and yellow. Because see here, capital R is there and capital Y is there. Since both are present, it becomes round and yellow. Next individual, again 1/4 of another part will become as round and green. Round, green, white became as capital R is present, so it became round. Since capital Y is not there, this individual became green. And another 1/4 becomes wrinkled yellow here. Why it became wrinkled is for the absence of capital R. The capital R is not there, so it became wrinkled. And again, since the presence of one Y is there, capital Y, it became yellow. So that is 1/4. Another 1/4 was not having either the capital R or the capital Y, so it exhibited the recessive character, that is wrinkled green. So you get a ratio of 1:1:1:1 for the dihybrid test cross, and you get 1:1 for the monohybrid test cross. Why was this test cross done? The test cross was done by Mendel to detect whether the F1 individual was heterozygous or not. See, at those days the technologies were not very much improvised, so he just took the tall plant what he got from the F1, and to check whether this was heterozygous, he had to do this test cross by crossing it with the recessive parent. If the ratios are 1:1, then that proves that the particular F1 generation what he has taken is a heterozygous. This is being picturized in your textbook by this diagram, students. You can see here, first what they have done is they have taken a homozygous dominant flower which is having the purple color flowers, and the other one homozygous recessive which is having the small w that is with the white flowers. When this is being dominant, that is the violet flowers, when this is crossed, you get capital W and small w individuals in the F1 generation. All 4 you get, and since the capital Y is there, the capital Y corresponds for purple, so all 4 are purple in color. This becomes F1. This F1, that is capital W and the small w, is taken here in this particular case, and another homozygous recessive, because it's a F1 test cross here. F1 and the recessive parent is taken, and when they are crossed, you take the allele small w and small w, and from this you take the capital W and the small w. When you cross, you get 2 purple colored flowers and you get 2 white color flowers. Look at this, the 2 white color flowers doesn't have the capital W, and these 2 has the capital W here. That is why the ratio is 2:2. You also can say it as 1:1, because 2 ones are 2, again 2 ones are 2. So you can say 1:1 is both genotypic and phenotypic ratio of this particular test cross. Students, there's one more thing what we have to tell is about the reciprocal cross. Reciprocal cross is not mentioned in your NCERT, or even this wasn't done by Mendel. This is for your comparative part. Reciprocal cross is nothing but taking 2 individuals of same characteristics. See, now I have taken capital T and small t. When I crossed, I got all tall plant here. Here also I have taken capital T, small t, and I got all tall plants here. But what I have done is, when I took a plant capital T, first time I took it as a female. Next, in another cross, the capital T, what I took was a male. Similar way, even this is vice versa. Small t was male here, and the small t here is the female one. When we just interchange the sex of a particular character individual, and when we cross this way, this becomes a reciprocal cross. Obviously, all are tall plants here, because this particular tallness is the dominant one. Again, here also all are tall, because again this is a dominant one here. Whether male or female, that doesn't matter here. But if you're changing the sex during the crosses as the same as before, then that particular cross we call it as reciprocal cross. Thank you.